Welcome back to the Tailosive EV podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we have lots of new stuff to go over today.
Wait,
who's this?
Hey, welcome back.
Oh my God.
I'm done being mad at you, Mike. I forgive you now. I'm ready.
Oh my goodness.
You're not going to like this episode then, Randy.
Soaking in lament.
See you later.
All this time, he was just angry until this very moment.
I don't think I could have gone to
It takes me
another
getting
episode
angry
without
for you
Randy
guys
here.
to do all these things together. I thought you guys were recording last week's podcast in the same room, and then my disappointment when I saw two separate backgrounds. I was like, ah.
Yeah,
Talking about? Oh,
we did
no,
so much stuff.
We were too far away at that point. What has happened in the last week has been, at least for myself, way too much EV stuff. I've been exposed to way too many EVs.
My condolences?
You're right.
7
There has been
to
a lot.
8 days or whatever. Like, how do I even describe this? So, Drew and I, we already talked about in the last podcast, we got to do a nice little meetup. I got to meet Mike, Rivian Mike, who doesn't have a Rivian anymore, Mike.
Rivian Mike.
And then the very next day, I got to see, well, was it the very next day? No, I guess the day after that. A couple days
The
after that.
very
On
next
Sunday,
day, you threw it away.
on Saturday, I got to check out the R2. Which,
Yeah, that's right. Let's start with that. Your R2 in-person thoughts.
got to see the R2 at Santana Row in San Jose. Unfortunately, the R3 was already gone. One of the prototype engineers who worked on the R2 and R3 with his own hands told me, because he was there to hang out with the vehicle and answer any questions. He said that R3 and R3X, I believe, were on their way to Georgia to go be looked at by those that will potentially be building the Georgia plant, and also those in the community that will be benefiting from the jobs there. Anyways, R3
said,
wasn't there.
like, Make hundreds of thousands of these, please. Thank you very much.
Pretty much. But I did get to see R2. They still had that over on the West Coast. And it honestly blew my mind. Because I don't think I've been too sheepish about my feelings on R2 on this podcast. I've been slightly underwhelmed with it. It's decent, but the R3 is definitely the one that I'm most excited for.
Me
After
too.
seeing the R2 in person, I'm a bit more excited. Pretty much, I'm seeing it as the Model Y replacement if the Model Y ever gets totaled at this point.
Okay.
Like, it will be that vehicle, no longer the R3 pretty much. Like, if there's an option between R2 and R3, I think I might go R2 if the Y gets destroyed. Because, man, the dimensions, really weird to figure out in an image and then see in person. It's still slightly weird seeing something that's pretty much the same size as a Model Y, but is squared off like an R2, or sorry, an R1S. And with that, the wheel looked a little bit too big, like I felt in a lot of the images that I saw. It feels like it could be a little bit smaller, but otherwise, it all looked great. Very much was a prototype. The prototype engineer there he was getting some nice photos of me and my wife with it, and he was having to close the doors with two hands and really push on them for some of the photos. But otherwise, it was pretty cool seeing in person. I was sufficiently excited about it after seeing it. I think it's going to be a hit.
Mike, I have a question from one Y owner to another.
Mm-hmm.
How comparable... Oh, sorry, Drew. Yeah, sorry.
You don't own a Model Y, Drew, so you're excluded from this.
Just take a lap. There you go.
See ya. Bye, Drew.
I'll see you later. All right, bye. I love the dimensions of the Model Y. I love the hatch. I love being able to just walk in. And most importantly, I love being able to just take my kid in and out of his car seat without having to tuck and duck and him. I've bumped his head a few times on the 3, but the Model Y, it's just in and out. You know, I'm a very compact person myself, so the Model Y really amplifies my mobility in there. And
Makes me a better parent.
It makes me a better parent. It makes me a more responsible parent. so, 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 I've seen the R1S and it's a good size. You know, that's I like it, but it's a bit rich from my blood. And this is something my wife and I actually disagree on. She would rather have an R1S over an R1T. She's told me that time and time, like, no, that one's more practical.
Our
that
wives
makes
are
more
too
sense.
similar.
I think wives are the reason SUVs are selling the way they are.
Yeah, yeah.
You carry all the stuff.
But she said if you sell Phoenix for a Rivian, I'm not going to tell you which one to get, but I'm telling you which one I like more. And I said, oh, okay. This is my vehicle. But I do understand the appeal of the R1S, except that it's too big for what I'm ever going to be used to having. But the R2, I'm like, So someone who's had a Model Y now and you comparing it with someone like me and my predicaments, what I benefit from an R2 is now that you've seen it in person, I think you have even a better gauge of what the R3 would look like, because I want the R3. I think that part's clear.
R3 is the fun car.
I think we all...
Everyone wants an R3. You get an R3.
Assuming like you, something happens to one of our cars and it gets totaled or something, and the R3 is still not out because it's 2025 or whatever, is what would I like the R2? I guess is what I'm asking.
I think so, because you love your Model Y, or at least you and Brittany seem to like it a lot.
Yeah.
And it's got the same dimensions, so you don't have to worry about pretty much learning what you're occupying in terms of space. And hopefully they still include like a bumper cam on this thing as well. But with pretty much the same spatial utility, and has a decent sized back area for storage and all that for the hatch, and what looks to be pretty all right, if not good, seating for the second row, I would say, yeah, it makes total sense, because you're not going to... Thinking about it realistically, why would it make sense to replace the Model Y that I've got, or that you have, with an R3 that's less capable in terms of space, size, and just the utility that's got? It doesn't really make sense. It makes sense to replace it with something that's somewhat equivalent. Now, I'm not going to go out and buy myself a Blazer if the Y gets totaled. And more on that later. But for an R2, it's an exciting company with an exciting product, and it's pretty much everything that I already have right now, but Rivianized in a way. It just isn't out yet because they still haven't realized the product yet.
I like that. That's good.
It does everything. It pretty much is going to suffice everything that I have in my regular use cases. I cart dogs around. I cart a whole bunch of stuff around between Home Depot and home, or wherever else around the Bay Area. I need that space for a lot of the things that I do at my house or elsewhere, help people move, anything else like that. So it stands to reason I'm not going to try to replace the Y with the R2 when the R2 comes out. But if that situation happens, in which I keep on bringing this up in this podcast all the time, if something happened to the Y, I'm not hoping anything happens to the Y. I'm not willing.
He really wants me to just go full speed into his Model Y so he can put an R2 reservation in.
Well, you can get your money back.
No.
Do it anyway.
But I'm joking. Seeing it in person, it clicked in my head the realism of the replacement for the Model Y. It's not an R1S. The R1S is very expensive, too big. The insurance on it is a lot, and there's a lot of utility in there that I will not be using, or at least a lot of the use cases that it can suffice. I'm going to get nowhere near touching it, and I feel like I'm going to waste its potential. With the R2, it's perfect. It's exactly what I need as a person that lives in the Bay Area, where I'm not carting around giant things or going over giant boulders. I'm just going on the streets. And though it's not as aero efficient, it does have that utility that I would like for a more boxy design that I fell in love with the Volvo 940 wagon that I owned. So It'd be a return to form in a certain way. It'd be combining the best of both worlds, something that me and my wife fell in love with from 1995, with something that is our daily commuter and that we utilize and love the sportiness of today as an EV, in our first EV. Combining those two just kind of clicked in that moment when I saw it. So I think that's pretty much encapsulating my feelings of what R2 is and my revelation of the product.
That's exciting to hear, because if I'm so bullish on what's to come down and I'm like, I'm blinded. I'm blinded by greed, and I've allowed this dark lord to twist my mind until now. Anyway, I can't make sense of what's fair. Of what anyway.
We're talking about Rivians, and then I heard Dark Lord. Anyway.
Intrusive thoughts are winning. Intrusive thoughts are winning.
It's just Star Wars.
I actually really liked the way you explained it, Mike. May I just add? As someone who's not a big fan of the R2, the way you interpreted your enjoyment of it put it in perspective, because my perspective is like, Rivian's just a cool brand, and what I like about Rivian is they're everything Tesla isn't. They're still a startup. They still have this big software emphasis, but they are about the driving experience, and they are about adventuring and off-roading, and they want to be capable, they want to be practical, while still having this love of the earth and efficiency or whatever, and designing their own powertrains. And the R3 to me is like, well, this is the cheapest, most obtainable, most mass market variant of a Rivian. I still get my scroll wheels that look amazing. I still love that interior design, and it's still got a hatchback. It's not going to be as spacious as an R2, of course, but when you articulated it in a way that, no, we bought the Model Y because we wanted more space. That was the rationale behind it, and we're comfortable with those dimensions, so I wouldn't want to replace it with something smaller, because that would result in me having less capability, less storage than I have now, and the R2 is basically just fitting the exact same footprint of the best-selling car in the world, so we know it's a popular form factor that'll sell well, but it just, in my opinion, rightfully, because you don't want to make a carbon-cut copy of Tesla, they rightfully said, we're going to focus a little bit more on utility and adventuring with the off-roading and the better ground clearance for the small sacrifice of efficiency. So it won't shock me that it's not as efficient as a Model Y, but if, especially more and more these days, when people are done with Tesla, and they're like, I like aspects of my Tesla, but I wish it had the bumper camera, I wish it had the 360-degree view, I wish it was better at off-roading, wish it had more storage.
I wish it didn't have Elon.
I wish people didn't ask about Elon every time I showed up to a place. Yeah, that it's just a clean look, and even though it's not for me and I'm not terribly excited by it, I do think you're right. It will sell like hotcakes, because it's the perfect form factor. R1S is already very popular, and this is just, okay, bring everything about the R1S at a lower price, which is like, yeah, that's probably what you should do. That makes sense.
It's beautiful.
I think one thing that did impress me is the prototype engineer that was there. I forget his name. It started, I think, something with a P.
RJ? Oh.
It was not RJ, unfortunately.
R1,
what's his name?
R2, R3, RJ.
RJ. Yeah.
So it was fenced off. So unfortunately, I couldn't touch it. I mean, I could have, but I was going to respect their boundaries. But he did show the
He didn't ask for
drawer.
consent.
He did show the drawer underneath the center console, and that was really cool because it goes pretty far, at least in this prototype, enough to where they fit a whole
huge
Logitech keyboard in there, which was kind of crazy to me, honestly.
Two glove boxes.
And it has two glove boxes, and the front seats can fold down. I'm probably
It's making
not
up for the
use
last
that.
model.
Pretty much, yeah. So
we're now at an average
me,
of one glove box per review.
I had a lot of enthusiasm for it right after seeing it, surprisingly. I was coming in excited for the 3. 3 wasn't there, but the 2 was. And the 2 kind of hooked me in a way. Like,
nice.
3's cool. It's a nice, fun, like, dream dad car for, like, weekends driving, I don't know, on the coast or something like that, or through the mountains or something like that. But the R2 makes
having
so
the
much
song
more sense
"Boys of
for
the
you.
Summer" playing.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'd be that Ewan McGregor gif with the R3. That'd be me. Like,
yeah, or the John Cena one with the headphones. But what's also really cool that my wife pointed out is that the little packages, the little zipper packages that you get in the R1 that fit into the door sills, goes in this one in the back. I call them the milk jug holders. They're in the back left and back right of the vehicle. Stop making it weird. It's not weird.
It's not weird. It's just funny to me that you would call them that.
That's what they are. They fit cartons of milk pretty well. At least in the Y, it's like the perfect spot to put stuff that you don't want rolling around everywhere. You just throw the fruit, you throw the milk, you throw whatever in there.
Okay.
It fits them perfectly. Stop it. Stop making you... I know what you're thinking. I'm going to move on to another topic at this point.
RJX. We should find RJ's first girlfriend. This is RJ. R3X. Tri-motor.
Anyways.
That's insane, though. Did you see Rivian was pulling people with, like, trim prices and stuff?
I did not see that.
It was being posted around Twitter, and one of the options said that the 0 to 60 time of the Tri-motor R2 would be 2.5 seconds.
Sheesh.
And that's
now I'm trying to picture that same powertrain in the R3X. I'm like...
2.1 at least.
Can you picture, like, the Plaid Model S showing up to the drag strip and then just this R3 goes...
And then you had this corkscrew material R3X.
Man with one overall on and a 10-gallon hat. Just like, hey, nice fancy thing you got there.
It's the meme of the professional golfer and then, like, the colorful golfer with the...
Yeah.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Pretty much that.
R3X is going to be insane. I can't wait.
With that,
we had the whole earnings report. We had the Cybercab drop. We had referral program changes.
We're going chronological order of all this stuff. All right. Yeah.
Well, you started with R2, and I almost forgot about that. So I'm like, we should probably, if there isn't much order to this, we should probably just stick to, like, the chain of events.
Okay. We could go chronological. Randy, did you catch any of the shareholder stuff that was announced earlier this week?
I did not, unfortunately. Okay. But I didn't need you because...
recap.
Yes, you can. And I'll even recap your recap even quicker. I got notified on Fidelity about aftermarket trading shooting up, and I was like, oh, hello. Something good happened.
Did Hertz do something? What's going on?
They bought 5,000 more.
I have not seen the Tesla stock react that positively since the Hertz deal. That, no joke. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's never. Right. And I wanted to pick your guys' brain on, because we all have our doubts on robotaxis because Elon has a very unreliable track record. He's telling everyone on the earnings call.
2 weeks.
Wait, are these cheaper cars that we're accelerating? Is that just a Model 3 that's cheaper, or is it a new model? And he goes, wait for August 8th. And I wish I could be like, Elon, y'all don't have the best track record when it comes to events. Like,
Model Y is the only good one.
Means nothing to me.
The Cybertruck event was like nothing, but we shouldn't have said that the whole time. Like, every piece of that event was like, no, for the durability. Let's not do that. And the starting price, we shouldn't have said that. And the range is, we should not have said that.
We made an ATV.
We made it. Exactly. This is so much of my point. Tesla does not have a great track record with an unveiling event. But what I wanted to pick your guys' brain on is, after so many quarters in the past where Tesla would be like, we were profitable, we made a bunch of money, and then the stock would just it would tank after all these great earnings reports. But it was like, they didn't announce, I don't know, the cyber SUV, so I'm selling all my stock. And then they finally report like a quarter-over-quarter decline. They blew all this money. The deliveries aren't looking good. The demand is like, I guess we're lowering prices again after we taunted people. Why do you guys think the stock responded positively if there's so much like long-term skepticism surrounding robotaxis anyway? Like, is it because the cheaper car timeline has been moved up, or
probably mention of cheaper vehicles on the horizon? I think was in the shareholder deck they said they plan to make these things or introduce them in 2025 or 2026.
Early 2025, if not late this year, is what they said.
Introduce them at least, but not necessarily have them as something you can purchase. So right. I'm sure that was probably some of the source of excitement rather than what Elon dropped verbally in the shareholder call, being a robotaxi / cyber cab, whatever that means.
Excited, I'll admit.
What is a cyber cab?
I don't know, but if you can add a steering wheel and pedals to it, I want to drive around a weird looking cheese wedge. That sounds fun. It's kind of what the R3 is. Who's going to deliver this
it's
little
the
wedge
golfer
first?
meme again. With the
that thing that Ken drives in Blade Runner 2049?
Yes.
That thing.
Ken! He said Ken!
Yeah, he's just Ken, that's...
That is the line.
I'll find the picture of it so the audience can see what I'm referring to.
You're talking about the DeLorean-esque looking thing.
I love that thing. It looks so cool. And if I asked Grok, show me a picture of a cybercab, I would put something like the Blade Runner image.
I still don't fully know why the stock shot up the way it did, because up is down and down is left. Nothing makes sense anymore. And I've given up on like trying to hope for like good returns. I just have to assume 2024 not a good year for these tech stocks as a whole, which is fine. Like whatever. If 2025 is the year, then 2025 is the year I might have my exit strategy lined up then. So we shall see.
So what I'm hearing from both of you is that neither of you believe that this was because of their claims of robotaxis coming. You don't think it had. No. You don't think the markets were like changing their mind. Oh, they're actually going to do it. You don't think that was the cause?
No.
Okay.
We who have demoed or own FSD can see that future coming closer. We see the vision. We understand it, but we don't. Like, that doesn't translate well to investors, shareholders, people who are just speculating or even gambling in the space. That doesn't mean diddly-do for them. But so all things FSD related that's supposed to translate to robotaxi might pique our interest because we saw the advancements so refined and so apparent. But people who don't like Tesla, this doesn't change their mind. And people who love Tesla, this doesn't make them backtrack anything. So no, nothing about robotaxi.
Interesting.
When you have a company, an enterprise.
Sorry, go ahead.
Like the Hertz thing that you were like referring to, like that is a big deal. That's because now that means somebody's putting their money where their mouth is, or an entity that has the money to do it. That's a bigger deal than future promises on software. You know what I mean? Like that, nobody buys future promises on software like that, and it's sustainable. That's not it. But when you have these other entities and these bigger influences in a space, like for automobiles, like a rental car company is huge. So when they did that, that made sense. I was like, yep, I see. But much like the people who leased vehicles with FSD on it and didn't get it, Hertz was just one more victim of that caliber.
One more victim. Now they're selling all their Model 3s for
you
very
got
cheap.
to. You don't want to rent. You don't rent with rentals. The whole rental space is, supposed to be very showy. People don't go to rental cars so they can rent a 2020 anything. No, those things you find them at, CarMax or something at that point.
Okay. Well, to play Elon's advocate,
don't you dare.
You can interpret that however you'd like. They did spend $1 billion on increasing their it's not GPU, NPU clusters. So could someone interpret that as, they're getting really serious with their doubling up of compute power to interpret all this data? Is that because you're saying people like seeing when someone puts money where their mouth is? So if Tesla's buying, doesn't that mean they must really think they're close? I might believe that. I believe they think they're close. I don't believe they are close, but I believe they think they're close.
The little engine that could. The little gigafactory that couldn't.
Mexico.
Maybe. Okay, so putting money like that counts, but I think you have a bigger impact when it's an outside entity.
Okay,
like when I was talking about her, it's like that. That one feels more like that's concrete. That's more undeniable. Where it's like we're reinvesting all this money that we have now into this thing. That's good too. Hang on. That's not bad. That's really good. But when they're reporting profitable earnings quarter after quarter and the stock kept doing this.
Yeah.
So that means just the short-term holders were just cashing out each time then?
I really didn't understand it. And now I understand it even less. I was like, I used to say, Tesla stock tends to grow slowly over time, but it'll take massive dips really fast whenever there's an announcement. But then this happened, and I was like, well, now I really don't get it. Is it if you're to continue this hypothetical, if it's from outside, do you think that's why there's so much curiosity about who this potential other automaker is that wants to license FSD? Is it like the shareholders are like, we're trying to figure out some kind of large influx that comes from all of this development. So maybe that resulted in a push?
No, the reason why that stuff works is because it on paper, and then even the optics of it looks, there's stability. It's more stable. It's not one company running everything when if it's like we're doing a collaboration or now we're licensing this. It's like now you have more or less a contract with entity, and unless the apocalypse happens, that's guaranteed revenue for however long that license is going to happen. And Tesla didn't really have to do anything. They just here's our software, here's our codes, and now you can use it. That is way more attractive as a business model, especially if you're trying to get your stock back up. That instills confidence and trust again, because you're like, all right, somebody else is backing this again, and it's even cleaner than a rental company buying a fleet of vehicles, because with licensing a software, it's more, you can have that cohesion, that synergy. So that's way more attractive, and that's going back to like we were talking about with tech on this week's episode, open sourcing things. I know this one's licensing, so not one form, but my bigger picture of like everybody kind of getting their hands in the pot, I think it's just more lucrative than trying to keep everything as closed off as possible. Maybe because our markets are so mature now in that sense, that's not the best business model anymore. Tesla's not the only, show pony around flaunting what they got. We got genuine competition and healthy competition for that matter. And this should make Elon happy. He can now, this is do nothing. And his goal, his vision of accelerating the future of transitioning vehicles to a more sustainable energy, this just helps that too. So yeah, I feel like that's a good one. That's a really good one.
all this. And
They
we're gonna
did
find
also
out.
mention AI in their shareholder deck.
Oh yeah.
So the big buzzword of AI is there too. So maybe that just sends the stock up and up as well. Not the piles of cash that they got, but the fact that they got acceleration of AI software and fleet-based profits.
There's a Family Guy skit where Lois Lane, when she's like, I think she's like running for
Lois
public
Lane?
office. Lois? Did I say Lois Lane? Sorry. Lois Griffin. Sorry. Sorry. My bad. Lois Griffin.
Hey,
I think she's running for something. Peter. And she goes on stage and she just goes 9/11. Woo! And people are just like throwing money at it. Like she's just saying all these buzzwords and then people eat it up. Elon goes up for her earnings call. AI. Yeah! Woo! People are throwing flowers on the stage. That's what it is.
All this, we're going to find out the company that wants to license FSD is Fisker.
I was thinking Infiniti or Nissan, but sure.
Why? Why them?
I don't know.
I see a lot of people say
what
it
else
might
are
be
they
Rivian.
doing? What else are those companies doing, Drew? Tell me what Nissan is doing right now.
I don't think they know FSD exists. I genuinely, based on their car design, I think they'd be. There's what? What is Tesla doing?
Understand that the Mustang has come back with a vengeance yet?
They're looking for FSD under the hood. I was like, I don't have that component. I don't know what that is.
I don't know.
We bought that from another supplier, right?
Nissan's gonna say. So there's read and there's write. Those are two separate. No, I think
FSD, read and write.
Ford has kind of, doubled down on their whole Blue's Clues thing, whatever it is. And GM has Super Cruise, and they seem to brag about it. They're like, yeah, we made our own autonomous driving.
Blue's Cruise.
But to tie it all back, Rivian, when they unveiled the R2 and the R3, said we intend on having level 3 autonomous driving on these, so you don't have to pay attention. And they haven't really talked much more about it other than that. They've just kind of said, yeah, the goal is level 3. And I wonder, now they're on the NACS train. They even showed the R2 prototype with NACS and everything. I wonder if they're the kind of company that would be like, I mean, we're a bunch of former Tesla employees anyway. Let's just bring this over.
I don't think so. Their whole focus is on adventure, Drew. They were also
why would
not
RJ
first
say
in
that?
line for the NACS because they're going to do it their own way.
Okay, well, why would they do it if they're all about adventure?
It's autopilot on boulders. I don't know.
I just feel like just borrowing it from Tesla would be the simplest way to do it.
Oh, it is, but that means you have to get your sensors. They can't even get it done on the Cybertruck right now, Drew. They can't get simple
I agree.
autopilot functionality on it. Try putting that on a Rivian.
No, I'm not saying it's Tesla's going to deliver. That's a different question. I'm saying, at least according to Elon and the shareholder deck, they have a major automaker that wants to license FSD. We don't know who it is.
Rivian is not a major automotive company.
Did you just say that?
They're not.
They sell the 4th best-selling EV in the country. Who is a major automaker if not Rivian?
4th? I think it's 5th or 6th, right?
No, it was 4th. We remember we did a podcast on this. The R1 is
No,
best-selling.
so.
It was the best-selling EV in Colorado as well. Got to represent. Is that not? Who do you think the automaker is? Nissan.
Well, it's a big automaker. I'd suspect Ford, most likely. Seems
Even
like
with all
Jim
their
and Elon
Blue
are a
Cruise
little bit
stuff?
more handshaky than RJ and Elon.
I'd just
with
be
everyone
surprised.
leaving Tesla, I wouldn't doubt that at least they're trying to do something to encourage excitement with brands. So it only makes sense with Ford somewhat struggling with their products and also their technology that maybe they would. Or maybe it's just another major automaker that hasn't even tried implementing it. So I don't know.
Who hasn't
trying to
tried?
think Ram, maybe they're talking with Stellantis.
That's a good theory. Who do you think it is, Randy?
A luxury one, like a Mercedes or something.
Well, Mercedes already has a heavily strings attached level 3. It feels
they're
weird.
talking with Google right now with Gemini in terms of level 3 autonomous driving.
Well, it's not Audi. I know that. Can't be.
SVW.
I know. Those
Why
guys.
can't it? Why not?
Because there's just not like it's bad blood, but it's just water and oil. I don't know. There's a vibe I get about those two in a room together. Like they don't get along. They don't mesh. They don't see eye
And
to
yet
eye
you
about
have
things.
a household that has both.
Well, look. I'm not the leaders of these companies. I would streamline everything.
I cornered him.
But
maybe it's Aptera.
no,
they're doing no. Come on, Drew.
No, I think.
Well, it's easy to say who it's not.
No, I think it's
right.
It's somebody who like, think about something that has like strong brand recognition.
Stellantis.
I'm pretty sure if you said Stellantis on the street, no one would know who you're talking about.
The lost city of Atlantis?
Yes, exactly. That's who they're partnering with for FSD sharing.
I don't even know what I didn't see that movie. But
you didn't see Aquaman 2? They had FSD all over it.
I did not see Aquaman.
Isn't Ferrari not making EVs?
Okay,
yeah,
so, but like
they're making EVs.
The point I'm making is it's a luxury, like, where you pay premium for the branding of it. Something like that I can see be like, to better embellish their value. They're collaborating with Tesla, and it would be a good test subject with Tesla starting something small, something that's not so massed, out there for so many people. Like, let's see how this works, and then it can just like, I think it's a luxury brand one, like a Mercedes or something. I don't know which one, but I think it's that tier. I don't think it's Rivian, because that makes literally no sense to me. Like, then at that point, like, you're gonna burn bridges with me, because why it be Rivian trying to emulate Tesla? Like, just imitation will never surpass the original of it. It just
that's hypothesized your worst nightmare.
I know, because I don't want it to be Rivian.
Rivian has full self-driving.
No!
You were the chosen one.
He would said, not join them.
Oh my god!
It makes no sense. I mean, it's
Fisker. It's Fisker.
No, but it's definitely not Ford either, because I think, you know what? I can see Ford. If not a premium one, it's Ford. I can see that.
Just with all the time and energy they're putting into Blue Cruise, I still struggle to formulate, like, why would they be doing all this while simultaneously asking to license this? I don't know. I don't see it.
A stopgap. It's like a stopgap of sorts,
Mm.
Maybe they don't want to. Oh, geez. Maybe they don't want to do their, like, maybe Ford is waiting for their version. Well, like, Ford is waiting for their version of, like, the next gen CarPlay. Like, we want to perfect it, get this right for this next rollout of it. But in the meantime, we're gonna license this, and then maybe there's more of a seamless transition between those two entities at that point. I can see that one if we were aiming for a more mainstream one. But my first guess is something a little bit more. Oh God, what if it's like Lucid or something? Oh,
I don't think it's Lucid. I think they got too much bad blood.
Yeah, you want to talk bad blood? Holy crap! They didn't even mention Tesla when they adopted NACS. They were just like, so we noticed everyone's switching to this port for some reason, so we're going to do that, I guess. Whatever. Well, speaking of bad ideas, they ended the referral program again.
They're going to. And then Elon responds to it saying, well, actually, it's going to come back, and there's going to be some changes to it. this only brings up more questions. I was bringing this up right before we record the podcast with Drew. This is just putting a big old sniper reticle on the referral program in the scope of Tesla's rifle. And I don't know what's going to happen. You're putting attention on this. You're putting a giant spotlight on it. But I don't know what's going to happen. And it just makes me nervous about, do I spend all my credits? Or do I just leave them and then they just evaporate overnight at some point because they're getting rid of the referral thing? Because they will at some point, I'm sure, just be like, we're going to take
have an
everything off of the
expiration
shop.
date, but yeah, what you're saying is the things you can buy with your credits could change at any time. And what's weird is, like, I thought, oh, okay, I bought some more charging because I was like, oh, well, if we're not getting any more credits, I want to lock in some free charging because that's more valuable to me than anything. I thought Elon probably fired the team in charge of the referral program. It's going to just be phased out at the end of the month. And he said, well, you can keep your credits and use them until they expire, but you just can't earn new ones after the end of April. But then, like an hour before we start recording, they add the universal wall connector with power share and the J1772 dock to the referral program now for 12,000 credits. And I'm like, okay, so you're still adding things to spend your credits on while simultaneously saying, like, no, we're taking this down, but a new one will launch in a few months. I don't know if I believe him. I just think the existing program was so perfect. It was so dynamic because you could change it based on supply and demand with the whole credit. That made so much sense to me. Like, if you're losing too much money on the referral program, okay, then just say Model Y doesn't count, or now you only get 1,000 credits per delivery, so it's heavily diminished. Or if the free charging is too expensive, then you just get rid of the free charging. You force people to buy something else. It was so, like, adjustable to then just go, we're just gonna get rid of it. We'll think of a better one later. It's like, what?
It just feels too familiar of what we've already.
I can't say I'm shocked.
It was like 2 years ago.
We all suspected it would die again. I just didn't expect it to die like this, I guess.
Have died before.
I thought they would just drop the free supercharging tier. I thought that was like, nah, you can only use it on FSD now. And I'd be like, darn.
Or merch.
I can only get FSD or merch. All right, I guess I'll take FSD. I didn't expect it to be like, no, all of it. None of it. It's like, I'm perplexed. It reeks of, what did someone call it? Elon's coming in and making all these sweeping changes. There's like 5 Tesla executives that all decided they wanted to spend more time with their family over the course of 2 days, which is awfully convenient.
Literally the rhetoric that I forget the guy's name, but on the shareholder deck podcast, on the shareholder call, he pretty much reiterated
Martin
exactly
Vieca?
what is written in text. Yeah. Of, I'm going to spend more time with my family. It was a great, I think, 8 years or whatever, 8 or 18 or something like that. He's been there for a while.
I guess I should use this time to announce that
No,
I am departing
Denied.
from the Taylor's podcast so I can spend more time with my family.
Oh my god.
Ignored. Anyways.
Denied. I do not accept your resignation.
See you on Monday.
I'm very curious what caused that. And I wonder if it had something to do with what he said in the call on, if you don't believe Tesla will solve autonomy, then you shouldn't be invested. And like the next day, Drew Baglino sells all his Tesla shares. I was like, interesting. It's
he called your bluff.
I'm trying to figure out a positive way, if there is one, to spin having so many people at Tesla step down, but try to present a unified front. They're still speaking pleasantly of Elon with Elon. But to me, it feels like he's being very cutthroat. You know, he was trash talking the marketing team after he fired them all. It just feels like he went in there and said, scrap that, get rid of that. It was just doing everything very
batteries?
quickly.
No.
Everything happened so quick. Someone said it's like the employee that never shows up to work showing up when the managers, because his compensation package is coming up to be redecided on. So he's like, I guess I gotta show up now, look like I'm doing something. And I just wonder if some things were said like that behind the scenes that resulted in a bunch of the executives going like, I don't think I need to work here anymore. I think I'm ready to step back a bit.
Imagine if Drew Baglino went to Rivian.
Oh my God. That would say everything without saying anything.
I spent more time with my family.
For a week.
I would love to see how the Bulls would spin that, because all the Bulls are just like, well, it's hard to work at Tesla, it's a lot of long hours and hard work. It's understandable that five people would step down all at the same time, and then they immediately get hired by someone else. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting.
to that note, though, wait, in bigger U.S. government news, they've just now officially banned non-compete clauses. That's unethical, and it's also retroactively taking effect on things that from people who were in non-competes before up to now. But now
I didn't make that connection.
I'm telling you, dude.
Do you think that has something to do with it?
Yes, I do. I genuinely do.
Because I didn't even think of that.
That just happened within the last week. I know. I got to write this down because that was something I wanted to bring up.
That was a genius idea.
No. Like I remember there was something I needed to. Anyway,
we can't have non-compete clauses anymore. So I really need to spend more time with my family right now, you guys. And that would explain why they want to save face. That would explain why they wouldn't say anything bad, and they would speak very highly, because that's the quiet exit. You don't want too much attention. You don't want a target on your back. You just say, "Hey, great working with you guys. I love you all. You're doing a great job. I'm so proud of you. I'm gonna head out now, but take care, all." Whew, okay, let's get out of here. Whew. Let's see, RJ, any openings? Sorry, 1%. We gotta reduce the workforce.
Just go to Lucid at that point.
Yeah, Lucid's hiring.
And I know
give you $1 billion.
That thing is tailored towards big tech companies too, because it was so notorious that when Apple would poach someone and then they would lock them in and they can't then turn around and go work for Google or Microsoft or whoever, it's that is deemed unethical and malbusiness practices. So it is not a coincidence that I see. Look. Maybe it is a coincidence, but what is it's probable that it could have been
There's a lot of
coincidence.
Coincidences stacking up. Everybody wanting to become their family man all at once.
That tells you that these companies don't get so big without being a little ruthless. That's just how that works. And maybe some people felt like they were gridlocked and they had to stay with a company. In this case, Tesla. There is an exemption, though, I have to highlight. I just don't know at what level that senior level management are still beholden to a certain level, just because they have such a heavy influence and they can't, you can't have, say, someone like Tim Cook leave Apple to then go prop up I don't know, literally anything else. It's too
Rabbit. He's gonna go work for Rabbit.
Yeah, maybe you can't. They can't do that because because Rabbit's terrible. No, but senior execs that actually have strong influence on things are still there's still something there. I don't remember the terminology of it, the verbiage of that.
Yeah.
But,
do a deep dive on that one.
Yeah. No, I wrote it down. I'm gonna.
Okay.
I have
I'm excited for that one.
I feel like I need to address that one a lot sooner than later too, because that's more relevant. And we have examples with Tesla. And I am going to make the case, as I am here on the show, saying that it's a pretty big coincidence that now that non-competes are deemed unethical, I'm trying to find flaws in my stance. I think it doesn't take effect right now, though. So that's the spend time with family. There is a grace period that's supposed to, when it goes into effect. And it's within the next, I think, month or two. So it's not happening right now, but when it does go into effect, then it retroactively takes away all the ones from ever. It's just that that won't hold up in court anymore. You can't go after somebody for advancing their own career in the same sector. So if that is the case, I don't see why some of them would want to hang out a little bit longer, unless it's that bad of an environment that we just don't know about, or
we know they run it like a startup company.
the parachute, the golden parachute, whatever it is now for the next thing is just so good, too good, that they're like, all right, now we can do this. So, it's in that sense. Now that I come to that realization, it wouldn't be surprising if they went to somewhere like Rivian, where it's like, okay, we're hedging our bet with this new startup, and we're going to make them successful the way we made the last one successful. And now it's legal, and I can do that. Yeah.
4690s. Here we come.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's where Drew's going. 4680s, 4690s.
He's like, I like the sound of that.
And he's already seen how they're built at Cato Road and Giga Texas.
He knows a lot. Like he probably knows
10
more than
more
everyone.
cells.
10 less cells. You don't need that many more.
Yeah.
Because they're longer. Anyways, it is somewhat suspicious.
Little sus.
But what was a little bit more suspicious in my mind was that following this timeline of events, Drew then decides to come down to the Bay Area. Surprisingly. Don't know why. No clue. Totally wasn't planned, right?
No,
not for any event that we were planning on going to. And he's like, hey, you know what? We should definitely, check out a Chevy Bolt for fun.
Dude, I don't like GM, but those bolts are getting cheap. Oh my God. It's impressive.
According
but
to
it's
GM,
cheap getting good. Good things are getting cheap, but are cheap things getting good? I know it has a charging limit, like it's not the fastest charging, it's not a good battery cell, but it's also not, a $30,000 car. So, like when you buy a Nissan Versa, you know exactly what you're getting.
What do you think our opinion was then, Randy, on the Bolt?
You liked it.
That is accurate. But only because it wasn't the Bolt. We went to go check out a Bolt, and we didn't drive a Bolt, and we enjoyed it.
What was it?
We had full intention on test driving the Bolt when we pulled into the dealer, and then we were like, whose mind was changed? At some point, you were like, we should test drive a Blazer. They have a Blazer because they have.
So here's the thing: we're pulling up. There's about 3 or 4 Blazers on the front of their dealership lot, and we thought, well, at least in my mind, I thought I didn't know that these things were out on dealership lots already, and there's 5 of them. They have to at least be doing some test drives with those. Let's see if they've got any available. And so we went in. And the funniest thing happened pretty much. That is, we asked, hey, is there a Blazer that we could drive? And the nice sales lady said, I think so. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of them. What color do you want to drive?
That's a good looking color.
Also, what trim do you want to drive? They had that many options on the dealership lot to where we could choose whatever color, whatever trim, and they had it ready for a demo drive, which was just insane to me, and which is why I thought, okay, we have to test drive the Blazer EV then, because we've memed it with the Blazer effect. And
yeah.
Yeah. It's just another crossover EV, but you know what? It's new, it's here, it's now. Let's see what the hubbub is about this thing and try to figure out whether it does live up to just being another Blazer.
Ooh.
So for
Statement.
those that are listeners, we drove a red, almost like a crimson red, RST model, which is their highest end performance trim of the Blazer that they're offering right now. Apparently, there might be an SS coming later, in which, if you talk GM or Chevy trims, SS is like top performance trim for Camaros, if I'm correct. So that's coming later. We got in the RST, which is their somewhat performance trim today. I forget what the range is on it.
It was like 280, 290. It wasn't great.
The one that we got in had was it 50 miles of range or 40 miles of range left?
Oh, it was at like 10% or something.
It was like a 10%.
It was really low. It had been in the back. There were some that had like dust all over them, like they had clearly not been touched for a long time. But I think because the specs are kind of meh on paper, but there's a lot of like quality of life features that were kind of impressive to us, that you need a really a good splash of personality on this thing. I would not want one if it was just basic white with a black interior, but having that red exterior with the red interior was like, okay, you got some character. You're not going to find another car with an interior like that, with that much of an accent. And I really like red, so
think about it now, they're almost mimicking Ford with the Mach-E, offering a red, and then what they also had on the lot was like I think it's called a grabber blue color that Ford offers. With very Chevy, vibrant. I don't know what they call their blue, but very bright electric blue.
Yeah.
On a Blazer. But yeah, we checked this one out. We had to navigate through the sea of Blazers out of the dealership, and I'm not kidding. We had to use the top-down cameras. We had to use all the cameras possible to get out of there. And
it had 360-degree cameras, so he could see all the angles. Luckily, he didn't hit that many cars. So
thank God.
I destroyed a few bolts on the way out, but that's all right. They're going.
They said
out
those are
anyways.
fine. You can hit those. Actually, we'd prefer if you hit those. We can write them off.
They were blowing up anyway.
Pretty much. So yeah, we drove it around. I drove it around for half.
It's like
of the
diffusing a landmine.
Drew drove it for the second half of the test drive, and
they're sending those bolts over to Ukraine.
Oh my gosh! I was surprisingly.
That's good. They're good cars. Yeah.
I was surprisingly impressed with the Blazer. I was not expecting to be impressed by this thing that we've memed on.
How it handled, or just like cabin space, the color, like what was it?
Mainly the interior packaging is what really got me. The exterior it seemed very big. It was running on 21-inch tires, if I'm correct. So those things were massive. The body seemed huge.
Probably bigger than it needs to be, honestly. Like the hood is pretty big and there's no frunk. So
Charge
it's
port's also massive. Yeah, there's no frunk. The trunk hatch area is also pretty small, but they make up for that by giving the second row passengers a lot of room. Drew had tons of space, even going up at different angles. He had a decent amount of space. But yeah, the fact that it comes with cooled and heated seats and a heated steering wheel, and it has kind of a driver-focused display for both the center screen, the gear cluster, and then also a heads-up display as well, was a bit surprising to have all those different ways of interacting, or at least seeing information. For me, it was just speed limit, or just speed for the heads-up display and the gear cluster. But for Drew got to check out how the Google integration is with the Blazer, in which seemed a little bit redundant, right? With the amount of information that you're seeing in front of you while driving.
Yeah, they just had so many toggles, which, some people might like redundancy, especially if you want to keep your eyes on the road. That heads-up display was pretty sharp, and you could see exactly how fast you were going and then what the next turn is, which I was like, okay, that's kind of nifty. But yeah, I'd probably put something else on the main screen, like my music, if I was driving it around. But it's a pretty big screen, and as far as like the UI and menus were concerned, I was impressed how snappy and high refresh rate it was. I was like, okay. And for a legacy automaker, this is catching up a bit. There's no start button. You just get in, put your foot on the brake, and it's ready to go. I was like, okay. And you guys are picking up on some things. Although it didn't pass my favorite map test, which is, when you pull up navigation and you just try to zoom out and move around the map. It's a lot more choppy than the rest of the UI menus. That's something Tesla just, especially since they switched to AMD.
You have AMD. It felt more like my Intel-based computer.
Yeah,
in the
but
Model
that's
Y.
I don't know what
4
that's
years
like.
ago. Your Model Y has AMD.
But I'm a passenger. I'm not touching the display in the Model Y.
A second ago, you were an owner. You and your Model Y owners club. Now you're like, well, let's not. I don't really drive it, but no. Especially when we checked out the S, the S and the X, and I think the Cybertruck have 120 hertz displays. And when you navigate the maps, it's like.
Dang.
It's so smooth. So anytime I go to any other car and try to move it, same thing with the Lucid. It's like it doesn't like the maps, but everything else was pretty good. And the ventilated seats was nice. The turning radius was super tight.
It turned really good for a big vehicle. I wonder if they've got some rear wheel steering or they're taking advantage of something else. I'm just not paying attention
rear wheel
to.
steering, but it was good.
The price was also pretty good as well for that RST. You'd expect it's the top performance trim with a red interior. You're thinking, all right, this is around like $60,000-$70,000, right, in terms of whatever they're offering. But for the Monroney sticker that they had on the lot, it went down to like mid 40,000 for the whole package,
Whoa.
including their incentives or pseudo tax breaks.
I thought for sure you were going to say 55.
That's pretty much exactly what the MSRP was, but GM is applying a $7,500 credit. Even though they don't qualify for the tax credit, they're like, we'll just eat it. So,
interesting.
Sub 50. So it's directly cross shop with the Model Y. And if you're just comparing it on paper with the Y's going to win because it's more efficient, it's faster charging.
But does it have vents that you can manually toggle on and off and move in whatever direction you want?
No.
See, that's the thing. Like,
And
I
it has
don't
grab
necessarily
handles.
care for that, but some people don't like that blank space. It's okay for them to be wrong, but it's a bit distracting. It's cluttering. It's hoarding. You don't need all that gadgets and buttons and gizmos, but they should, like, I think the options should still be there. And a lot of people who have told me in the past was they like the Model 3 and the Model Y on the outside, but when you get in the inside, it's intimidating. It's too bare, and they it's like being alone with your thoughts. They're not ready. They're just not ready. So for something like that, this is
far more intuitive to have a way to just open the glove box with a latch.
In terms of a performance vehicle, it was a little bit lackluster.
Yeah,
Drew
was
was
not very
expecting
fast.
when I slammed on the accelerator pedal to be pushed back, and it boogies just not well. It feels more like a limousine compared to a sports car with like a performance Model Y.
And that was in sport mode. We put it in like the sportiest possible.
Yeah,
maybe,
you're there. You're not shopping for what your day to day. You're there to have fun. Do it. Whip that boy.
Yeah. Fortunately, it didn't have as much cracking of the whip than we expected for something as a RST trim.
I looked it up, by the way. The all-wheel drive RS, which is what we drove, has a 0 to 60 time of 6 seconds, which is slower than my rear-wheel drive Model
Slow
3.
down there, Grandma.
But it was at a low state of charge, so maybe it would have pulled harder if it was charged up more. I don't know.
You know what pulls harder that's fine. What if I told you, Randy, that we saw 2 megawatt hours of energy sitting on a lot?
Whoa.
Cybertruck. No.
No.
Well, we did see
I did see those earlier in the day.
That's not what he's referring.
Think bigger. And more
When I think of
audacious.
such power of like that, my brain first went to Cybertruck. Okay.
There's
what?
a whole tier list category that we have on this thing.
Oh,
Give you some PTSD.
no. No.
We saw 10.
And look, it's still not selling. Oh,
we saw
God.
10 Hummer EVs
Ew.
in a single area right next to the Chevy dealership. There's a GMC dealership, and they had 10 of these suckers lined up. I guess 1 in one or 5 in one area and 5 in another.
With the American flag. This is the most American thing I've ever seen. Jeez.
So many Hummers. Oh my God.
Just looking at this photo already killed my battery on my phone. My laptop is lost its 80% hold charge. It's now at 79. And I'm actually telling you the truth. It's at 79% now. Just looking at this image, I dropped a percentage at a holding state of charge. Oh man. Ugh, look at them. A whole fleet of them. Why? Because they're so not practical. Just look at that. What?
It was insane seeing all of them.
It was weird to see over a megawatt hour of batteries fit in 5 parking spaces.
It was really strange. I stopped the car pretty much in the middle of the road and gasped.
He was like,
and looked over.
And he just went full 90 degrees.
There was no one around us. It was just us on the road.
He hit several pedestrians, but it's okay.
Like a brick wall.
They didn't sign non-compete clauses, so we're clear.
I don't think that's going to protect me in this case. But yeah, we saw that. Shortly afterward, for some reason, Drew wanted to go on the hunt for a performance Model 3. And we unfortunately struck out on our first attempt, in which we're following Tesla's list of showrooms that have them. And the first one that we went to didn't have it, surprisingly, apparently, which was kind of a bummer. But
it was a worthy mistake because they had the Plaid with the new seats in there, which is also something I wanted to try but didn't know where to look. So now I don't have to look. It's just like, oh, sweet. Now we could try both. Now I know how I feel about both.
Are we selling our cars and getting Plaid 3s now?
No, so Randy, this is a Plaid Model S that we're talking about. And
I know, I'm being facetious.
The excitement that Drew had, realizing that the Model S sitting right there in the showroom had the performance seats in it, the new ones. His face lit up, and he immediately was like, grab my phone, capture this.
Sounds about right.
In which then we then made a video of him sitting in a perforated seat, and then his reactions to bolstering on a seat.
Heck,
and man, Randy,
yeah.
The excitement that this boy has with seats that just have a little bit more angle to them.
Okay, come on. But it's in a Tesla. That makes it different. We've seen boxy cars before, but now you're seeing the R2. That's exciting. We've seen a boxy car, but now Rivian's doing it. So we've seen bolstered seats, now Tesla's doing it. It makes it feel more like, oh, now I can consider it.
To be honest, yeah, it looks like it looks like a gaming chair too. If you were to ask me to kind of like articulate what the future of vehicles would look like, I would reference this photo.
Oh yeah.
With the yoke, the seats, black and white, glass everywhere above, like that is a futuristic car that you get today. That's a good looking car. That's a
spaceship.
The one that we sat in had the correct steering device, which was a whole circle.
Correct.
But that's just
no FSD included.
Can
we talk really quickly? I know we're going through a timeline of things, but I just want to accentuate my thoughts on them dropping FSD.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about
dropping
that.
FSD.
That happened.
It's now $8,000.
Yeah,
and then dropping enhanced autopilot as well. That's no longer an option.
Yeah, well, sucks to suck. You buy a Model 3 in 2019 then or
Go
something.
buy an
I don't know
iPhone.
what to tell you.
Buy your mom FSD.
Did you not say in 2024 buy your mom FSD? I'll have the scribe read the transcript again, Your Honor. So the this tells me what I was kind of failing. Going back to like maybe why the stock is doing good too is like backtrack a little bit, Tesla. That's a good thing. It's okay to backtrack. Walk back some things you said, own it, and then re-deliver. I think $8,000 is still too much, but I bought
agree.
mine at $6,000, so I'm 100% biased in that stance. But anything over $6,000 to me was not worth it, so that's why I did it, and I still stand by that. But we're in the right direction because Elon was, we've mocked it about, it's going to be worth $100,000 and it's just going to keep going up, and then it's like, ain't nobody buying this thing. That's fine, we don't need to because it's going to go in robo-taxi. And now we've seen a healthy walk back, and we're still adjusting for prices because I think I have to pull up the numbers. I don't know the numbers right here. If we adjust for inflation from 2019 and now, maybe we're sitting at what was $6,000.
I'll check. I'll look that up.
Look that up. And even then, I'll still say it's still too much being aged. It should still be $6,000. If an iPhone is still $1,000 for a Pro model today, regardless, then FSD should not be any more than $6,000. Hey, Jamie, pull that up for me. But yes, it should be no more than $6,000. I don't know.
I wouldn't pay $6,000 for it, just to be clear.
I did pay $6,000 for it, so that's why
I paid
I have
that.
I have
And it's
to. I have to
still
own
worth it
it.
to me
Otherwise,
right
I'm
now.
just going to be sad. I like that these prices are dropping. I like that costs for vehicles are going down. It can hurt my resale value, but I don't really care because I'm not selling anytime soon. And even if I was, like,
Nah, I'm not
the
selling
bigger
either.
picture of it is I would rather get a better, newer, cheaper vehicle with all the things that I want, the bells and whistles, ventilate. I just want ventilated seats. That's it. But on the software department, they had no business reason or incentive to really start dropping prices because it doesn't cost them anything to just have the code just there. Like at that point, I just accept it's like, then it's 12. Then I guess we're staying at 12 or 15 forever. And to them, it's like,
Yeah.
if you pay it, great. And if you don't, we don't lose inventory. It's not taking up space. You're just buying code. All right, what are we looking at? What is it?
So $6,000 in 2019 is the equivalent to $7,300 in 2024. So it's close to 8, but not quite.
Okay.
So factoring in inflation, it's almost back to the price that you paid for it.
Yeah.
It's just funny looking up the times when FSD went up. We watched it climb the ladder, and there was a time where you could lock in the price of FSD with your Cybertruck reservation. And there's a time where it's
Suckers.
10,000. You can lock it in at 10,000 with your Cybertruck. And I was like, what if they honored that when your order comes up? Okay, you're paying it. We locked it in for you. Hey,
That $100 locked you in at $10,000. So
I must say, even more so than I've already said, this FSD price reduction, pretty massive one, like 30% decrease overnight, is a huge slap in the face to the Foundation Series Cybertruck buyers. Like,
they got the
spent
money.
What value?
They don't care.
You spent $20,000 extra, but it comes with FSD. How much is that worth again?
Yeah.
Can I even
When do we
use
get
it?
autopilot? When do we get lane keep? That would be nice. We'll get to
I
it.
am sad to hear about the enhanced autopilot not being an option, but that tells me that like it's maybe everything's being more integrated as just one. I would rather there just be one package and it is what it is and you buy it and it's even less than $8,000. I would if you call it whatever you want. Now it's FSD supervised, right? I don't care what we call the thing. I just want to have the features to be as accessible as possible. Like, let's be realistic about the price. Like, you're not gonna, if you're trying to sell this vision of the future of autonomy, it's not going to happen at $15,000, and it didn't happen at 12, and it didn't happen now at. And I don't think it's going to happen at 8. Personally, I think it needs to drop down. I
think
would
it's
be
gonna
comfortable. Okay, that's also very fair.
Just wait 2 weeks.
I don't think. Wait, I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think. I don't.
I think they've killed enhanced autopilot before. It's not the. I've died before.
It died with the referral program.
So we'll see all this come back.
We're just repeating history then. The referral program went away, enhanced autopilot went away.
As is life, history is doomed to repeat itself.
It's all flat circle.
After using FSD the last few weeks, I've probably put over 2,000 miles on it. I would not buy it really at any price. I would spend money for auto lane change and Summon. I like Summon. I use that a lot. It's been nice having it back this month. I'll miss those too. But
this seems like enhanced autopilot.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't know. I don't think enhanced autopilot is using the new like V12 stack or whatever. It's using some old code, which isn't as good because I like that the FSD stack like inches around semi trucks, like it gives them space on the freeway. That's really nice. But all the city street driving is just like I only use it if I'm not in a hurry. And even when I'm not in a hurry, it just stresses me out. So I'm like, oh, I'm looking forward to it. And I try it every day. I'm like, honey, did you use it? Because she uses it on her, she takes the car to work and stuff. And she's like, I tried. It's every day. I was like, did you try it? And he was like, yeah, it worked for a little while. And then I had to take over. I was like, yeah, so why would we even use? I could get it for free for years with the referral credits I have, and I still wouldn't. I still don't want to. It'd be like waste of a good whiskey. I'm at that point.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a waste of some free charging. That's what I'd rather have.
To be fair, that stance hasn't changed. If I get all these points, or in any capacity, if I can choose between any software or charging, I'm going charging every time.
Yep.
It's just more practical and
absolutely
best bang for your buck. My wife bought the premium connectivity package for a year with the referrals that she
nice.
With her points, and
that was a great choice.
She told me, she goes, don't do it. I was like, no. She goes, no, I was just doing some quick number crunching. It's like, it is what it is. I'm using it and we're getting by with it. But she's like, you get better utility out of your points just on the mileage alone if you do supercharging over anything else. I think the only exception where she's going to splurge with it is we're going to get like a roof rack for the Y, so we can start,
there you go.
Mountain biking and stuff like that, and just have more outdoorsy things. We don't have a Rivian, but we are in Rivian Central, so we might as well pretend like we have one and do all the fun stuff.
You'd rather have the bikes on top of the vehicle, or rather behind them on a bike rack?
That's a her question. I'm not leading the campaign on that one.
Okay. Because, I mean, you guys being vertically efficient people, I would suspect having it more on the back is a lot more accessible rather than having to open the door and then try to grab the bike from the top of it. In which, even with the one mounted on the hitch, I think you have the hitch, right?
No, we don't. We didn't pay for it.
Then maybe the rack makes a lot more sense.
I think that's what it was.
That was going to be my follow-up. You can't get the tow hitch through the referral program, but you can get the roof rack.
And that's something she's made very clear and noted. She goes, but we didn't buy it because it was like, what, $1,000, $1,200 or something. So we just didn't waste our time with that one. So the roof rack, I think, is the most practical. And for what is, I mean, we'll make it work. I can get up there. I just wanted to talk about FSD for a moment because that was, if I was a betting man, I would have not ever guessed. I would have never thought they were going to drop the price, let alone down to 8. So
sure.
I don't think they're done, to be honest. I think it'll go lower than it.
I think I'm comfortable at 5, to be honest with you. I'm like 5 feels like a clean round number.
I'd say the lower the better. The lower you go.
I agree with Randy. 5 sounds like a great sweet spot. It's like enough to be like, that's a lot of money, but also I might be willing to actually put down that money to try it out.
I feel like it sounds good until you compare it to like anything else. It's like
you're going to compare it to
5,000
the 200 or it's 100 now to the monthly
100 a month.
subscription, and you'd be like, I can recoup my costs in this amount of time, or
I'd just be like,
subscriptions.
Yeah, 5,000 sounds way better than 8 or 12 or 15, sure. But if you cross up 5,000 for FSD, look at how much you spend on the tech in your life.
Mm-hmm.
When an iPhone's $1,200, it's like, ooh, I don't know if I want to go 1,200. If it's a laptop,
yeah, but you got
like,
these knuckleheads spending $3,500 for headsets. They'll be like, yeah, sure, why not?
And we all talked about, no, it's not worth it. $3,500, way too much. But it's like, oh, something that'll stop 3 times at every stop sign. Okay, $5,000. That's pretty worth it. I guess.
It's better safer than sorry. But I think of it more as like, if we're including some tech discussion here, I look at it as like Final Cut Pro. Do I want to pay a subscription, or do I just want to buy it outright?
No, because that's the iPad version. You can't subscribe to the Mac version, thank God.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make is I want less subscriptions in my life. Just let me pay it outright. Even if it's more in the end of how much I would have used it if I just subscribed to it for the rest of my life or the rest of the vehicle's life versus just buying it outright. I don't want to deal with that bill every single month of, oh, we subscribe to it again.
No, I wouldn't either. I'm saying do neither. Like, I watched you drive around the Bay, Mike. You hardly used FSD. The same way I would have used
because
Autopilot.
You've been using it. Why would I use it if you've been using it?
It's your car. I didn't tell you. Like, I did the same thing to
Randy.
Randy.
When Drew
Randy
comes and visits, be sure to use FSD. Okay.
Yes.
Noted.
Apparently, every single time he comes to visit me, he's like, "You didn't use FSD on this drive to over this."
I like to see when I don't say anything. How do you use your car? To me, that's much more telling to is it worth it or not? Because
2 to 3
you turned it
times
on the freeway when you just wanted it to stay between the lines, and I was like, "This is what autopilot's for." You just turn it on and don't think about it, and then you turn it off when you want to do something cool. You're a great driver, by the way. You did a great job navigating the hills, and you're
I appreciate
much better
that,
driver than
ran into
FSD.
someone, but thankfully the blind spot camera with the little red LED on the side actually saved us in that regard.
Always use FSD around Drew. Okay.
Randy, do you remember this when we went to visit you?
About you observing how I drive?
Yeah, I waited until the end of the trip.
Yes.
I waited.
Yep,
I was like, Randy drove us around all over the place, and then at the very end, I was like, you never turned it on. You drove yourself the whole time.
I was very transparent, and you and I mean, the answer was kind of there in the moment because our wives were talking about like, oh, well, I don't really like it. And so
I don't like
Brittany
it.
was talking how it didn't make her feel comfortable, and it made like, and I agree. Like, the thing is, here's how I use FSD. The more people in my cabin that I'm legally responsible for, the less inclined I am to want to use it.
And that boy ain't leaving home alone a lot.
Yeah, but when I do leave by myself, I like to like, all right, I do. Every time there's an update, I go, all right, we're gonna go across town. I'm gonna go check on my brother. Boom, boom, and let it do its thing. And then potholes happen.
It's a huge storm drain right in the middle of my street that it hits every single time without failure. And even though it knows the speed limit's 10, it goes 30. And I'm like, what makes
I think your car is just cursed, Drew, because mine can now read the speed limit signs around my neck.
How would you know? You don't use it.
I used it on the way from the Hummers to the Palo Alto dealership or the showroom. I used it. I noted it because it was taking the curve pretty well.
In this corner,
the heavyweight champion. This man is spreading lies. And then I used it again after we saw the giant polygons driving around the Stanford area. I was using it on that straight road while we were trying to look up AI music of Darth Vader singing "Fly Me to the Moon."
Autopilot would
fly me to the moon.
It's exactly what you think it is. Even so, we got to check out the Performance Model 3 in the Stanford Tesla showroom.
Yes.
And Drew got to geek out over the fact that the bolstering was even tighter of a fit on him in the Model 3 Performance.
It was better. It was a better seat than the Plaid, regardless of price. I would have taken the Model 3 because
I agree.
Around
somehow
the
I
bum
had a more
especially.
positive experience with a bolstered seat, and yet this man was like flying to the moon. He was on the moon already.
Fly me to the moon.
It's the most beautiful version of the Model 3 I've ever seen. It's like, it's all grown up, it's mature now, and cheaper than the long range, which, speaking to another Model 3 owner here, Randy, if
Bye, Mike.
If the timelines, those look like cozy pants. If the timelines had shifted, and you were in the market today, knowing now that the Performance 3 is cheaper than the long range, would you go Performance over long range with those new seats?
Yes.
You would?
Yes. Well, I would do it for price. I would do it for pricing purposes. Knowing in that scenario you set up, knowing what I know today, and I was in the market and it was all fresh for me, money was always like, oh, I want to do that one.
So would it be rear-wheel drive versus Performance? Or, because I'm in the camp of like, I would spend the extra money on a Performance.
I would go with Performance mainly because I went with long range over standard range plus because it came with the enhanced better sound system, subwoofers and the tweeters. Right. I had everything.
True.
I like my sound system, and now knowing what I know, same context, like I'm spoiled. I gotta have a good sound system. I love the clarity of everything just like working. I would do the Performance over standard range because I would want the enhanced. I think going forward, any car I get will tailor to the sound system. I care more about the cabin, the comfortability of you as the driver, the pilot of this beautiful ship, and how comfortable you are in it, because that's where you spend 95% of your life. Like, you'll walk around the car, you'll appreciate it. Sometimes I'll sit in the back seat with my son, or maybe I'll ride shotgun, but most of the time I'm driving. And so I want that to be the most comfortable experience, bar none. Ventilated seats, shoot, good looking seats too at that, better sound system, and it's cheaper than a long range. And knowing what I know now about range, I'm happy I got the long range when I did, but it is not the end all be all. And I've learned that because of our Model Y performance. It runs just as efficient, I would say. It does need to charge it quicker when we do those road trips, but in road trips, those are the exceptions. That's not your daily. That's not how you mainly would use that vehicle. Those are your road trips. So you're already in a different headspace when you do that. I really like the Model Y because it's a Performance. And I like the handle of it. It drives kind of like a 3. It doesn't have as tight as a turn radius as my 3 does, but because it's just a little bit lower to the ground, I feel like I have tighter control over that vehicle than a regular or any other version of the Model Y. So there's a lot of things about the Performance variant now on these Teslas that I have come to appreciate now owning one, that I wouldn't necessarily mind, especially if you're going to sell me on aesthetics like this. Dude, I like those seats. Those are really good looking seats. Makes me like if black and white combo, everything, like that is so clean. Yeah, just out of pure ego, I would want to get the more premium, better, and save money than the long range. Heck yeah. So yeah,
it's gets the 0 to 60 in 2.9 second vehicle. It's the responsible thing to do, really. Trying to save money. He just launches it. It's cheaper than the long range.
and the Star Wars hyper, he's about to warp.
Right. I'm also confused. Like, they didn't call it ludicrous. They put that badge on the back, but
which is,
as far as I can tell,
it's not 2D. It's got like the little metallic lines.
Oh, really?
Coming from the center out, and the light hits it to make it look like it's illuminated, but it's not.
I have a picture of it here.
I thought was a really cool touch, kind of like Plaid that has a little pattern.
Maybe it's not ready yet, but I thought they would have built that into the software. Like when you floor it, it should do that full screen effect, just like the Plaid does it. But
just like the old ludicrous mode on the Model S's.
I think I like the Plaid version more with the colors, but because with at least this one for the red, I like the black and white. It stands out in the right way. It's clean.
It kind of has a blue hue to it as well. It looks pretty cool.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Mike can attest.
I want that.
Very
I want that design on all my thumbnails, where it's doing that on all my things. Drew's been doing it on his EV thumbnails, and I'm like, I like that. That's cool. So those anime lines, that's what that is. I'm looking at anime lines.
Anime car.
Yeah, I like
pretty
that.
much is.
Yeah, that's cool.
Mike can attest. This morning I was playing with the configurator far too much.
Oh no.
I was making pancakes and he was just looking at it like, I could get this and all that. I'm like, Drew, it doesn't have LFP. You can't charge it to 100 every day. He's like, yeah, you're right. I get, but it should be fun. It doesn't have steer-by-wire, Drew. Oh, I guess you're right.
He really talked me out of it with that because I love steer-by-wire. And I also, after driving the Blazer, I can't believe I'm saying that.
That's a reality.
I really want a bumper
living
camera.
now.
Bumper cameras are extremely helpful. And if you're not going to have a bumper camera, at least give me summon.
Front bumper is what we're talking about.
Yeah, front bumper, of course. Not smart summon, but something I've really enjoyed doing because I guess I have terrible depth perception, like a cow or something. But when I pull frontwards into a parking space, I'm always like, am I going to hit the curb?
Yeah.
Am I? And then I get out and there's like 4 feet and I'm like, oh, well, I could have kept going. So I just pull up summon on my phone and move it just like all the way till it's, out of the way. So if I had a front bumper camera, I wouldn't have to worry so much about that. But there were rumors that they would adopt that on the 3 and then they didn't. So
I have to ask, you're saying the Performance doesn't have steer-by-wire?
Nothing has steer-by-wire except the Cybertruck.
I thought the point of that was to then trickle down to...
Not yet. We're not there yet.
It's pretty hard to trickle down because I think it only really works with 48-volt architecture, and you have
That's
to
why
add
it's
all
cheaper
this.
than the long range. I thought the whole point was Cybertruck, and then it trickles down post, Cybertruck.
I suggested that for the Juniper refresh. I was like, the refresh 3 is cool, but what if the refresh Y gets steer-by-wire? And everyone said, no, Drew, they said they're only doing steer-by-wire for new vehicles, not existing ones. And I was like, well, excuse
I don't believe that. I call the Ron Burgundy, like, you're not, BS.
I don't believe you.
I don't believe you.
Right. Yeah, I think they'll add it eventually, but I'm okay ditching gear stocks if we have steer-by-wire, but especially when you're trying to click those buttons and you're doing this motion on the wheel, it gets confusing very quickly. And there are actually a shocking amount of roundabouts in my area, and I've already seen people complain about how hey, getting rid of stocks in Europe especially was a bad idea because we have to go through these roundabouts and you're signaling and trying to reach for the button as you're doing this. But in the Cybertruck, you just like that much and you're done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I don't have to like reach for it or, go upside down like this. I can just stay at, 9 and 3 at all times. And I was like, yep, I want this on everything, please. But Aptera still has a stock for the blinkers, so we're good. That's fine. And I like yokes, just so we're clear. I know y'all are the steering wheel absolutists.
I've never experienced. I've never got to I've never got to drive with a yoke, so I don't know. I sat in one and I've got to go like, oh, that's uncomfortable. I'm scared, but I've never like what you do in a showroom and then what you do on the road is different when it's time to like.
Sure.
I'm curious.
I test drove the Model S in Colorado, and I came to the same conclusion I heard Marquez say. He was like, living with the yoke, it's not the yoke that bothers me, it's the buttons. It was like the blinkers were the more annoying part, not the yoke so much. Yoke is probably bad if you're on the track.
I had the same problem with the new refreshed Model 3. buttons constantly at a different location while you're in a turn or anything else like that.
Yeah.
Slightly annoying.
I don't mind shifting on the screen. That I can live with. But it's specifically the blinkers, which I guess Tesla's like, well, we're not going to need blinkers. It's self-driving, right?
It just knows that you're turning. So, of course, it's just going to turn on the blinker on its own, right? Or you just
doesn't.
When you guys say things like that, that makes me want a Rivian again, like way more. Because I don't
Did you see
like
the Max Pack deal this morning?
No.
Oh, my God.
Drew was raving about. After I talked him out of the Model 3, he then immediately, I'm not joking, within like 5 minutes, he then went to the Rivian site, looked at what they had in their existing inventory, and found this Max Pack Rivian. He's like, well, maybe I need to buy this one then.
No, it's because the price was so low. I mean, I, on the record, have said the Max Pack is not worth it. It is a $10,000 add-on. It doesn't improve your road trip time that much. The charging curve doesn't change. But then, in inventory, I see the R1T with a Max Pack for $79,000, and then it qualifies for the tax credit. So after the tax credit, this is a $75,000 truck that gets over 400 miles of range. And it's a Rivian. So I was like, holy crap. I didn't know that the Max Pack prices dropped like that. I was like, that's actually not bad. It's like $2,000 more than the large pack. Which is, if you're dropping over 70, that's a pretty small. I mean, that's a rounding error.
At that point.
$2,000. Not enough to buy FSD.
Yeah, you can use the leftover money on your full self-driving because Rivian's gonna put that in there, right?
Nope.
No subscriptions, Mike.
No, I'm getting done with subscriptions. Does make sense. I'm buying everything outright. Doesn't make sense to do loans unless like you're really interested in some hydrogen vehicle for some reason. You just want to deal with it for a couple months or a year or so.
Yeah,
I just made the Clint Eastwood face.
At least, I guess. At least makes more sense.
Anytime hydrogen is mentioned.
I don't know if I'm doing Clint Eastwood or if I'm doing Jim Carrey's version of Clint Eastwood. You feel lucky, punk.
Yeah, that's Jim Carrey.
I feel uncomfortable with that face.
Oh, my God.
Should we save the best for next week then, Drew? With what your original intent on coming to the Bay was, or should we just?
Yeah, this is getting pretty long.
Let's save it for next week. We'll open with it.
All right. Well, then, for the question that I posed to the audience last week, specifically what they called, or they being not Aptera. Mercedes, what they decide to call their G-Wagon, but electric. Goodbye, Randy.
The G-Wagon is so bad.
They decided to call it, instead of the... Oh, you got the hat. Instead of the EQG, they decided to call it the Mercedes-Benz G580 with EQ technology. So for those that were curious, it's a very messy name. I've got no clue why they chose that instead of EQG, but here we are. And now we've got these ultra fans of their brands in their hats.
We wear many hats around here.
Like fancy cats.
We'll see you next time. Looking forward to what colossal snowfall of EV news we're going to get in the next 7 days. Sounds good. I've got a lot of editing to do.
It's good. Right. It's good. It's good.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. I hate to see you go, but I love to watch you leave, if you know what I mean. Canceled.